About a week or two ago, I Am Amish made 2 videos about his favorite places to invade in Dark Souls 3, and I was really inspired by that. But there was one area that I thought in particular that was just kind of brushed over, because the area above it is so much more interesting, and they both share the same boss, and that is the Profaned capital. Now, this isn't a, like, oh, the Profaned capital is actually the best place to invade in the entire game. It's not one of those videos, and it's not one of the best places to invade in the entire game. But it is very fun, and I think it's incredibly underrated. It's a pretty short level, it doesn't have a lot of mob support, but what it does have is height, and, to use another YouTuber's tired meme, it has a shitload of verticality. And with a little bit of hyper armor, the Silver Cat ring, and, fuck it, the Millwood bow, a smart and wily invader can just basically dominate this whole area. Now, there's some of you who have been watching me for quite a while, back when I had like 30 or 40 subscribers, and I did a whole bunch of short videos, which were like the short tales from the Profaned capital. This is going to cover a lot of that same stuff in just one comprehensive video, but subsequently I've developed a few more tactics, a few more tips and tricks, and I'm kind of at the point where I feel like I'm working at max efficiency for how to defend this place. So how does one defend the Profaned capital? Well, how does one defend a capital city in general? Let's ask the Washington, D.C. police. Okay, maybe not. Maybe that's a terrible idea. But during that whole event, there's this video of this guy climbing up a wall. As he gets towards the top, he, can't really maintain the strength to keep climbing and falls off and apparently hurts himself really badly, which is just hilarious. And the moment I saw that, I knew there was a connection that had to be made between this guy suddenly realizing the consequences of gravity and the Profaned capital's singular ladder to get up out of the toxic swamp. But we're going to be talking quite a lot about that toxic swamp and that one particular ladder. So this is how to defend the capital. So oddly enough, you can kind of break down every single invasion you have in the Profaned capital based on where you spawn. And it all kind of funnels into the same direction. Your first instinct upon spawning into the Profaned capital is to get to the top of the ladder. I don't care which ladder it is, just get to the top of a ladder. You spawned at the bottom of the poison swamp, get to the top of the ladder. Because this vantage point is going to win you the invasion like 99% of the time. And look, I'm not an analytics person, I'm not keeping track of which invasions I win or lose, or which ladders I used and which weapons I used. I'm a nerd with a YouTube channel about Dark Souls 3 PvP. It would be bad for my health if I became any more of a nerd and started tracking, which invasions I win and lose. So I'm not going to do that, but I would highly recommend getting up to the top of this chapel in the middle of this poison swamp. Because once you're up here, you can now live out your lifelong dream of becoming one of those Silver Knights in Anor Londo and just rain giant dragon-slaying arrows down on top of these people's heads. So when I'm doing my best Silver Knight impression, I'm doing a couple things. I am wearing the obscuring ring so they can't see me. It's just, large arrows of pain raining down from the sky. I'm also running a strength build and using the Millwood bow because there aren't any better bows in the game, but most crucial of all to me about the Millwood bow is that I have the ability to knock people off that little walkway into the swamp. And once you're into the swamp, you have to use the ladder to get out. So we'll come back to that. The last thing I do here is I also use the Executioner Greatsword as my main weapon, but it can be a really great tool to just have on your offhand, because every time you use the Millwood's weapon art, it's going to use up FP, but every time something in the level dies, you get a little FP back due to the effects of the Executioner Greatsword. So I can basically shoot these exploding arrows for free and not waste any of my FP. So this is a great strategy because people get invaded and they sometimes just like to stay still. This gets them to actually move and climb up your ladder. Or if they don't feel like that, they can go check out the useless items that are underneath the little cave area there. Or they also might be dumb enough to go try to visit the Monstrosities of Sin, which is just a room full of pain. And a lot of the time, these hosts don't have the blooming purple moss clumps, so they can't heal their toxic, so it just whittles away at their health while you chill up here and fire exploding arrows when they poke their heads out. So it's a little bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. You know, if you run off into the other areas of the swampy area, you just take free damage that I don't have to deal. But if you want to come up the ladder, things are probably going to get a lot worse for you. So, let's talk about that ladder. So like I've said before, once you've fallen down into the swamp, the only way to get back out is up this ladder. So here's where your Silver Cat Ring and your Hyper Armor is going to do you the most good. So because the party is likely toxic, you can kind of track them in their health bars the entire time as they come up that little walkway to the ladder. I go through a little routine every time someone walks up the ladder, which is to put the Silver Cat Ring on, eat a green blossom, and buff my weapon. So now I have protection against fall damage, which I'm about to perform a plunging attack. I have plenty of stamina, and my weapon does a shitload of damage. This is a very good scenario for me. The host, on the other hand, is about to take a shitload of damage and then roll somewhere. And if they roll, you know, while still on the platform, they're still within range of me doing a shitload of damage. If they decide to roll off the platform, they're going to take a shitload of damage because not a lot of hosts have the Silver Cat Ring. And let's say for a second they don't have the Silver Cat Ring, but they survive the fall. Well, they're still getting plunged on. It's such a great choke point because you have so many options, and it's very hard for you to lose as long as you have the Silver Cat Ring on. And that's because you always have an escape. You're getting put in a small little blender, just leap off the edge. You'll be fine. And if the host is dumb enough to come after you, you win. It's honestly a little bit ridiculous how often and consistently this strategy works. Another glorious thing about this ladder is that if people just run through the area, then all the weird toxic bugs at the bottom will just gather there. So if you can knock them off with throwing knives, you should always have throwing knives here, then they just take a whole shitload of damage while they're at the bottom. Because this is another property of ladders, is that if you get knocked off of a ladder, you are vulnerable the entire time you're lying down. It's not like getting backstabbed or another critical. While you're on the ground, you're vulnerable. So you can take damage, but you can also get status effects applied to you, such as an Undead Hunter Charm. So there you'll be, at the bottom of a ladder, vulnerable, without the ability to heal, surrounded by enemies. Not too surprised this guy pulled the plug after all of that. And sometimes a party, will see you coming, and they'll think they'll have outsmarted you, but really, now they're just giving you yet another opportunity to get plunged on. And that's what's so great about this choke point. You want to come up the ladder, you have to fight me on a narrow platform that you can fall off and die. You want to stay at the bottom of the ladder, okay, you get plunged on. You want to do both, you get plunged on twice. It really just takes all the disadvantages that an invader has and flips them on its head so that almost every invasion is winnable. If Sun Tzu could see this level as a place to defend, he'd say, holy shit, go outside, stop playing a video game. But really, this is like the greatest choke point of all choke points. And this is a very large reason why I absolutely love invading on this level. But there are other areas in the Profaned Capital that aren't just this ladder. There's plenty of other choke points throughout the level that with a little bit of hyper armor you can make great use of. The first is that small little bridge into the hallways leading towards the swamp. I like to just stand right on this bridge and just challenge people to come up and get bonked by the Executioner's Greatsword, which works out pretty well. And the nice thing about the Executioner's Greatsword is that with the spin attack you can knock people over. So what I like to do is I can use the stomp and spin to bait someone into attacking me, and then using the stomp and spin to tank through the first hit, and by the second hit I'm already knocking them off the ledge. So this strategy tends to work pretty well, but if you need to retreat you always can, because these other hallways are also your friends. See, when you invade here a lot, you get really used to just jumping all of the gaps in these hallways. So this area kind of becomes an area that you can traverse really well, but the party that you're fighting is a lot more hesitant to make those jumps because they're just not used to them. But this just becomes a narrow corridor where, again, something with like a little bit of hyper armor, like a greatsword, you can just keep holding choke points as long as you can. The only thing to be careful about here is that you can't let people get behind you because then there's no escape. So I wouldn't make this like your main area where you have to make a stand. That comes later at the ladder. But this is a great place just to set up a few little ambushes around the corner, group up your party so you can hit multiple people at the same time with a hyper armor weapon. So I know I'm kind of working my way backwards through the level here, but something that's nice about this level is that the gargoyles trigger on invader movements as well as player movements. So you can kind of tell where a party has already been based on the gargoyle that lands right here. If there is no gargoyle, it means they've already killed it, and you can just proceed into that narrow hallway because they're probably working their way through that section of the level towards the toxic swamp and chapel. But if the gargoyle activates, that means they're probably at the bonfire, or they're likely booking it towards Yorm's boss fog wall. And you might think, okay, shit, that's a pretty far distance away. I have to climb up 2 ladders, I have to climb down 1 very long ladder. There's no way you can catch them now. Except, if you go up the first ladder and roll off to the right, you get onto this little walkway that you can take all the way around and underneath the long ladder down, essentially just skipping that second ladder up to the bonfire. And this typically saves me enough time so that I can intercept the party and hopefully kill them before they reach Yorm. But the dream scenario is to catch someone on the ladder while you're coming around the bend, because then you can just hit them with throwing knives, and if they're not wearing the silver cat ring, they are 100% dead. The one issue with this shortcut though is I think it's just above the threshold that will kill you regardless of whether or not you're wearing the silver cat ring. So sometimes you'll jump off this ledge and just die. The solution to this I found is that you always need to roll off this ledge instead of just falling or jumping. I found that just with rolling, you'll always survive the fall as long as you're wearing the silver cat ring. So yeah, these are kind of my insights into invading and defending the Profaned capital. But, you know, it's not that popular of an area, and I think because people invade it incorrectly, or incorrectly for the most activity possible. This is something I've come to terms with a while ago, is that I can't keep making builds designed only to invade down. I have to start making builds that are casting the widest net. I get pretty frequent and constant invasions at the Profaned capital, and I feel like a big reason that people kind of avoid this area a lot is because they don't get a ton of activity here, and that's due to them invading with a build that is too high for this level. So that is my suggestion to you. I use a 60+6 strength build. I think this is the only real strength build that I have right now, but it has all the tools that I feel like I need to totally dominate this level, and I thought I'd do a little showcase of what this level has to offer an invader and how to best take advantage of those things. So with that all being said, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next one.